We're on Chapter 10 of Baron Trump's Marvellous Underground Journey. It's a brief account of my observations with Dr. Nebulosus, Sir Amber Opaque, and Lord Cornucore, who tell me many things that I never knew before, for which I was very grateful. Lord Bulger and I were more pleased with our new friends, Dr. Nebulous, Sir Amber Opaque, and Lord Cornucore. Although so eager were they to make us thoroughly comfortable, that they overdid the matter at times, and left me scarcely a moment to myself in which to make an entry in my notebook. They were extremely solicitous, lest in my ignorance I should set down something wrong about them. For, said Sir Amber Opaque, now that thou hast found the way to this underworld of ours, little baron, I feel assured that we shall have a number of visitors from thy people every year or so. And I've already issued orders to have extra beds made as soon as the wood can be quarried. Dr. Nebulous gave me a very interesting account of the various ailments which the Mickamankeys suffer from. All sickness among our people, little baron, said he, is purely mental or emotional. That is, of the mind or feelings. There is no such thing as bodily infirmity among us. Wine and strong drink are unknown in our world, and the food we eat is light and easily digested. We're never exposed to the danger of breathing in a dust-laden atmosphere, and while we are an active and industrious people, yet we sleep a great deal. For as our laws forbid the use of lamps or torches, except for the use of those toiling in dark chambers, it is not possible for us to ruin our health by turning night into day. We go to bed the very moment the river of light ceases to flow. The only ailment that ever gives me the least trouble is Iberiophronia. Pray, what is the nature of that ailment? I asked. It's an inclination to be too happy, replied Dr. Nebulous gravely. Maybe mania? And I regret to say that several of our people attacked with this ailment have shortened their lives by refusing to take my remedies. It usually develops very slowly, beginning with an inclination to giggle, which after a while is succeeded by violent fits of laughter. For instance, little baron, when thou camest among us, many of our people were attacked with a violent form of Iberiophronia. And although Master Coldsoul, the court depressor, made great efforts to check it, yet he was quite powerless to do so. It spread over the city with remarkable rapidity. Without knowing why, our workmen at their work, our children at their play, our people indoors and out began to laugh and to be dangerously happy. I made examination of several of the worst cases and discovered that at the rate they were beating the hearts of most of them would run down in a single week. It was terrible. A council was hastily held, and it was determined to conceal thee and Lord Bulger from the public view. But happily my skill got the upper hand of the attack. Didst increase the number of pills to be taken? I asked. No, little baron, said Dr. Nebulosus. I increased their size and covered them with a dry powder, which made them extremely difficult to swallow, and in this way compelled those taking them to cease their laughing. But there were a number of cases so violent that they could not be cured in any way. These I ordered to be strapped in at the waist with broad belts, and to have their mouths held pried open with wooden wedges. As thou mayest understand, this made laughing so difficult that they speedily gave it up altogether. Ah, little baron, continued the wise doctor with a sigh, that was a sorry day for the human race, when it learned how to laugh. In my opinion, that we owe this useless agitation to our bodies, to you people of the upper world. Exposed as we were to piercing winds and biting frosts, ye contracted the habit of shivering to keep warm. And little by little this shivering habit so grew upon you that ye kept up the shivering whether ye were cold or not, only ye called it by another name. Now my knowledge of the human body teaches me that this quivering of the flesh is a very wise provision of nature to keep the blood in motion, and in a way this to save the human body from perishing from the cold. But why should we quiver when we are happy, little baron? All pleasure is the thought, and yet at the very moment when we should keep our bodies in a perfect repose as possible, we begin this ridiculous shivering. Do we shiver when we look upon the beauties of the river of light, or listen to sweet music, or gaze upon loving countenance of our gracious Queen Galexa? But worse than all, little baron, the senseless quivering and shivering, which we call laughter, unlike good, deep, long-drawn, wholesome sighs, empty the lungs of air without filling them again. And thus do we often see these gigglers and laughers fall over in fainting fits, absolutely choked by their own wild and unreasoning action. I've always contended, little baron, that we alone of all animals had the laughing habit, and I'm now delighted to have my opinion confirmed by the acquaintance of the wise and dignified Lord Bulger. Observe him. He knows quite well as we what it is to be pleased, to be amused, to be delighted, but he doesn't think it necessary to have recourse to fits of shivering and shuddering. Through the brightened eye, true window of the soul, I can see how happy he is. I can measure his joy. I can take note of his contentment. I was delighted with his learned discourse of the gentle Dr. Nebulosus, and made notes of it lest the points of his argument might escape my memory. The more pleased was I in that he proved my faithful Bulger to be so wisely constructed and regulated by nature. I made particular inquiry of my friend Sir Amber O'Bake and Lord Cornucore as to whether Queen Galexa ever had any trouble in governing the people. None whatever, was the answer. In many a long year has it only been necessary on 1 or 2 occasions to summon a Minka-Minky before the magistrate and examine his heart under a strong light. The only punishment allowed by our laws is confinement for a shorter or longer time in one of the dark chambers, the severest or longer time in one of the dark chambers. The severest sentence ever known to have been passed by one of our magistrates was 12 hours in length. But in all honesty, we must admit, little Baron, that falsehood and deception are unknown amongst us, for the simple reason that being transparent, it is impossible for a Mickaminky to deceive a brother without being caught in the act. Therefore, why make the attempt? The very moment one of us begins to say one thing while he is thinking another, his eyes cloud up and betray him. Just as the crystal clear weather glass clouds up at the approach of a storm in the upper world. But this, of course, little Baron, is only true of our thoughts. Our laws allow us to hide our feelings by the use of the black fan. No one may look upon another's heart unless its owner wills it. It is a very grave offense for one Mickaminky to look through another without that one's permission. But as thou wilt readily understand, inasmuch as we are by nature transparent, it is utterly impossible for a marriage to prove an unhappy one, for the reason that when a youth declares his love for a maiden, they both have the right by law to look upon each other's hearts, and in this way they can tell exactly the strength of the love they have for each other. This and many other strange and interesting things did my new friends, Dr. Nebulosus, Sir Amber O'Pake, and Lord Cornocore, impart upon me. And right grateful was I to good Queen Calexa for having chosen them for me. Good friends are better than gold, although we may not think it at the time. Chapter 10 will be next. 11. Thank you for listening. Next time we'll read the other chapter. Bye now. Nighty night. Sleep tight.